Section 10.3, Multiplication and Division of Integers. Remember, integers include negative numbers, positive numbers, and zero, but they do not include fractions or decimals. Let's talk about the rules for multiplication. If you have two numbers that have the same sign, so two positive numbers or two negative numbers, your result will be positive. For example, 4 times 9 equals positive 36, and negative 12 times negative 8 equals positive 96. But if you have two numbers where one is positive and the other is negative, your result is negative. For example, negative 7 times positive 6 equals negative 42, and positive 9 times negative 7 equals negative 63. Let's try some other examples. 2 times negative 3 times negative 5 times negative 7. Count the number of negatives in this problem. There are 1, 2, 3 negatives. Anytime you have an odd number of negatives when you're multiplying, your result will be negative. Anytime you have an even number of negatives when you're multiplying, your result will be positive. If we work from left to right, we will end up with 2 times negative 3, which gives us negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 5 gives us positive 30. And then positive 30 times negative 7 gives us negative 210. Let's try an example now involving exponents. We have negative 4 in parentheses to the third power. When the negative is part of the number inside the parentheses, the entire thing gets raised to the third or whatever power you're working with. So in this particular example, we would literally take negative 4 times itself times itself. The negative carries over in every number you multiply. Again, we have an odd number of negatives, so our answer will be negative. And then we have negative 4 times negative 4, which is 16, and 16 times negative 4 equals negative 64. You could also do the problem as 4 times 4 times 4 and just know your answer is negative because there's an odd number of negatives. Okay, then finally we have negative 2 to the fourth. This problem is different than this problem because the negative is not directly attached to the 2. The 2 is directly attached to the exponent 4. So what you want to do is separate that negative from the exponential term. I always write it as negative 1. So we write it as negative 1 times 2 to the fourth. So again, that negative is not part of the exponent. So you literally write it as negative 1 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Only the 2 is being raised to the fourth power. The negative has nothing to do with that exponent. So we have negative 1 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 16. So our answer is negative 16. Let's try some more examples involving exponents. Let's take a look at the top. We have negative 7 in parentheses, all raised to the second power, which means we write out negative 7 times itself. So negative 7 times negative 7 equals 49. Versus negative 7 squared. Again, that negative has nothing to do with the exponent, so separate it from 7 squared. So I write it as negative 1 times 7 times 7. That equals negative 49. Okay, let's try an example involving cubed. Negative 3 in parentheses to the third power means to take everything to the third power. So we have negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. That equals negative 27. Versus negative 3 cubed. Well, let's do the same thing. Separate the negative from the exponential term. That negative has nothing to do with the exponent. So negative 1 times 3 times 3 times 3. That coincidentally equals negative 27. If you ever come across a problem like this where you have negative parentheses number to a power, it means the same exact thing as negative number to that power. In other words, those parentheses serve no purpose. They're just there to trick you. Let's talk now about division. If you have two numbers that have the same sign and you divide them, your result will be positive. Just like multiplication, if you have two numbers that have the same sign, your result will be positive. For example, 56 divided by 7 equals 8, and negative 72 divided by negative 8 equals 9. Both answers are positive. But if you have two numbers being divided where one is positive and one is negative, your result's negative. For example, negative 54 divided by 6 equals negative 9, and 36 divided by negative 9 equals negative 4. Some special rules for division involve division by 1 or division of a number by itself. For example, 14 divided by 1 equals 14, the original number. Negative 26 divided by 1 equals negative 26, the original number. So basically, anytime you take a number and you divide it by 1, the result is the original number. Don't confuse this with, let's say, 1 divided by 14 or 1 divided by negative 26. Those answers would not be 14 and negative 26. So the order in which you write the numbers when you're dividing makes a big difference. Let's look now at a number divided by itself. For example, negative 27 divided by negative 27 equals 1. Or 15 divided by 15 equals 1. So a number divided by itself will always equal 1. The only exception would be 0. Let's talk now about division involving 0. When 0 comes first in a division problem, or when it's written as a numerator of a fraction, then your result is 0. For example, 0 divided by 42 equals 0, and 0 divided by negative 16 also equals 0. Those are acceptable. However, if 0 comes second or after the sign, or 0 is in the denominator of a fraction, your answer is simply undefined. Negative 39 divided by 0 is undefined, and 3 divided by 0 is also undefined. Be really careful with the order. 0 divided by itself, so 0 divided by 0 does not equal 1. Like I said before, this is the exception to that rule. Because 0 occurs in the denominator of this fraction, it is also undefined. Let's try one application problem to end this section. The daily low temperatures during 1 week were recorded as follows: -6, -7, 1, 0, -5, -10, and -1 degrees Fahrenheit. To find the average, also known as the mean, of these 7 temperatures, we first have to add the 7 temperatures together and then divide by how many there are. So -6 and -7 give us -13, plus 1 is -12, plus 0 is still -12, plus -5 is -17, plus -10 is -27, plus -1 is -28. Take that -28, which is the sum, and divide by how many there are. There are 7 temperatures. So we have -28 divided by 7, so our result is -4 degrees Fahrenheit.